I wanted to make this video because I've been following this Taoist thing called just go with the flow of creativity. And I woke up this morning and I was like, shit, I have done a lot of dumb things that I'm not proud of. I have held a lot of misconceptions that I'm not proud of. I've just done a lot of things that I'm not proud of. And I think instead of highlighting the things we've done wrong to roast ourselves, we should highlight them to show how much we've grown and how much we've learnt from them. So today's video is essentially just a list of things that I believed that are not true, that I did that were bad, and that you guys commented in. Okay, so one thing that I used to do when I was little that I've discovered you really shouldn't do is feeding bread to ducks in the ponds at parks. Bread is not one of their natural foods. It's sort of like a junk food to ducks. It attracts other critters that shouldn't be there. It's encouraged that they should be foraging for food anyway. I checked what is safe to give to ducks and it said corn, but judging by the reasons for not feeding them bread, I'd say maybe ducks are a thing that might be better to just watch and not try to feed them. But I fully understand how nice it is to go to the park and feed the ducks, so just make sure that you swap your bread for corn and you're doing a little bit better. We've all seen that post on Facebook that's supposedly a quote from David Attenborough that says, if you see a bee lying on the ground, give it sugar water to continue on. That is completely a myth. You don't give them water. Usually if a bee's on the ground and it's collapsed, bees don't fall on the ground from exhaustion. There's probably something wrong with it. And so giving it that energy to then return to the hive is increasing the risk of whatever's wrong with that bee infecting the entire hive. Alright, another one that I used to do all the time, which I only really recently learned is wrong, was throwing my fruit scraps in the garden. So if I was eating an apple and I'd have an apple core and I couldn't find a bin around, I thought it was fine to throw it in under a tree or whatever because animals will eat it, it'll break down, etc. Not true. Animals may eat it that aren't supposed to eat that sort of thing, as apples aren't usually in their normal environment. It takes about 10 years for an apple core to break down. It's ugly for everyone walking through the park. It's just not a good thing to do. I did not know that when you recycled stuff, you had to take that plastic wrapper off. I also didn't know that the lids can't be recycled properly in normal recycling, so you're better off collecting them and giving them to one of your local places, but ideally the whole reuse thing's better, so if you can find heaps of uses for plastic bottles, that's better. But make sure you are removing that little plastic like flyer thing on your Coke bottles before you throw them out. And rinsing them out. I didn't know that that was that big of a thing, but even having the slightest bit of liquid in the bottom of a bottle can mess up the weight of it and the whole thing gets thrown out. So you really do have to clean the whole thing, remove the lid, remove the wrappery bit, and then similar to that again is the takeaway coffee cups. In my first year of uni, I think I would have had like 1,000 coffees in just takeaway coffee cups and threw them out. I didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about the plastic lid on top and recycling the cup. I didn't think about, just didn't. I was thinking about uni. I was thinking about my exams. I was thinking about study. I was not thinking about what I was doing to the environment, getting all of those coffee cups. Upon discovering that, that's really bad for the environment, I've got a keep cup and sometimes I do forget it. So what do we do when we forget our keep cups? There are some takeaway cups that can be recycled. Usually if you talk to the people, they'll tell you if it's biodegradable or recyclable, but just remember that those plastic lids on top are not. Don't throw them in the recycling bin. They're not recyclable, and please rinse it out because it'll just go in landfill if it's covered in coffee scraps and gross bits of moldy milk. I used to stomp on snails. It's not as much a big environmental one, but if you know me now, I love bugs. More telling you these things to say people change, people grow, that's okay. Don't roast people for who they were if they've changed. The idea is that we are better than we were. That's being human. So I stomped on snails. I used to kill spiders sometimes. And upon growing up, I've decided that's something that I really don't like doing anymore. You go, why not talk about it? We're bearing all, let's talk about periods a little bit. Misconceptions and why it's so taboo, I guess, if that's the right word. Sanitary items for periods straight in the toilet. I know it's something that a lot of people have done. It's something that is sort of communicated that you shouldn't do it, but I think a lot of it comes down to not paying attention to those things, but also embarrassment. I remember in high school being so embarrassed of having my period. I bled through on a bus once and I reckon I cried for a week. Luckily my school were really kind and no one really cared. It wasn't that people were bullying me about it. It was just I was so used to that sort of content being something to be ashamed of, I suppose. So I think that came a lot into play when girls started disposing of sanitary items in the toilet, because you didn't want anyone to see you disposing of it in a bin just in case someone made fun of you for having a period, which is stupid because we don't all get periods, but you know, a hell of a lot of us do. The menstrual cups are one to mention now, that you don't need throwaway sanitary items. I do want to just have a little comment on that. I am yet to use a menstrual cup. This is going to be a weird thing to talk about on a video, but it's a video about sharing and being human, isn't it? I have suffered from many period problems in my life, and it sort of led to 7 to 8 years of non-stop hemorrhaging. So a menstrual cup for me was not something that I could use, as it just would not hold what was going on. But in that time, the worst part of that, like, even with the pain and not being able to go anywhere and not being able to do anything, being on morphine all the time, the worst part of it was that I felt shameful. And the part that I'm most proud of now is that I'm not. I will talk to anyone about my period. I'll talk to anyone about the problems I've had. I'll talk to anyone about how proud I am of them. These conversations should be opened up, because upon going to hospital all the time for these issues, there's so many of us that it's so, like, periods are not nice. I think normal periods are bad enough, let alone how many of us are stuck with something that's just extra awful on top of that. Definitely isn't something to be ashamed of. And you're an idiot if you think periods are gross. Like, I'm not saying roll in someone else's period. No one's saying that. Just grow up. We can talk about it. Moving on from that one, that was a little, that one gets a little personal for me, just because I will fight for it not being embarrassing. And that getting a period and being a woman is something to be damn proud of, even if it's given you problems and even if it's horrific and you're having a horrible time with it. It's a womanly thing, it's a special thing, and that's cool. And it shouldn't be taboo. Like, it's just a period. Who cares? This is a quote from, like, I don't know, grade 2, grade 3 me. Boys are strong, girls are smart. We all used to say it. All this sexist shit that we used to say in primary school, acknowledge it. We learned from it. Look at where we are now. We're so much better than that. We know that's not necessarily the case. There are strong girls, there are strong boys, there are smart boys, there are smart girls, there's smart, strong boys, smart, strong girls, not smart, not strong boys, not smart, not strong girls, and everything in between. And it really doesn't matter anyway. Another comment that was talking about sort of primary school stuff was how much we used derogatory terms without even thinking about what they were or what we were saying, like using the term gay to mean something bad, or the N word or the R word. Or I still struggle with the R word when I slip up. And like, if you know me personally and you hang out with me, you will hear me slip up, realize what I've done, and try to fix it as quick as I can. And that's what you're supposed to do. That's being human. There's no shame in correcting your behaviours. You should take pride in correcting your behaviours. This sort of links onto the opinions thing that I was going to do anyway, because this is why opinions should grow and change with you, because we are constantly moving, we're constantly growing, and we are constantly changing. You won't believe the same things that you did when you were 6, and if you believe the exact same things that you did when you were 6, there's a problem. Another one kind of similar with using gay as a derogatory term was that when I was younger, I knew of gay and lesbians, and I knew of being straight, and there was no in between. This was raised in one of the comments as well. Bisexual didn't exist in my brain, which was really, really odd, given that I was into boys and girls. I remember being at school and trying to discuss this and sort of wondering if that meant I had to choose. Of course it doesn't mean you have to choose, just to put that out there first. But I also remember the discussions of the groups saying that it was for attention. I'm 23, and it's been this year that I'm really starting to get comfortable with my sexuality. I didn't know. The minute bisexual didn't exist to me, for a woman to be gay when I was young, I was told it was attention seeking, and so to me it was attention seeking, and I did not readdress that until this year. My opinions on like being gay and being bisexual obviously changed a lot earlier, and I discovered that bisexuality is a thing, and that it had affected me so deeply without me realizing that it was only this year that I was like, ooh, hang on, boys and girls, for me, that's not me just wanting attention from boys in year 8. That's, just like a bit of both. I'm attracted to so many different things in people that it's really hard to narrow it down to a gender, because I don't really care about someone's gender. I care about their soul and their environmental opinions and what they learnt in school and their favourite colours and music and all the other stuff that makes us who we are, and not our gender, because that really doesn't matter. Another one someone commented, which I thought was really quite cute, was that they didn't know what chicken nuggets were. Their mum told them that it wasn't chicken, probably to make them eat it. They thought that was some sort of plant-based substance, but that reminded me of all of the rumours that we heard so much about Macca's chicken nuggets. That they were made of like ground up dead babies, or they were made of chicken feet. And I think the chicken one, of all like ground bones and gross bits of chicken that you probably don't want to be eating, turned out to be true. Not sure about that one. I just thought I'd bring up, like, you know, we thought nuggets were made out of a bunch of different stuff. I also want to next video try plant-based nuggets, because now it's been brought to my attention that they do exist. And I'd like to try just some sort of vegan or meat-free substitutes for common foods that everyone loves, that I can try as a semi-meat eater. I've cut down a lot on meat, but that has left me not with many options, because I'm not a very good cook and don't know where to find these substitutes. So comment down below if you've got any substitutes for any meat items, or any sort of vegan meals that you really enjoy making, or things that you just really like that someone who has no experience cooking might try on a video for you guys to see the reviews, the taste tests, and the process of making them. Another one that I actually did believe was that bottled water was better for you than tap water because of the fluoride or whatever else was in the water. So apparently all the bottled water companies made up stuff about our tap water to get us to buy bottled water. We need the fluoride for our teeth or something along those lines. Again, fact check it. I'm more making this video to bring all my mistakes to light and to be proud of the journey of them. Bottled water is probably the biggest ripoff in the history of man. In the comments it was brought up that cutting down some meat makes a difference. There's this battle between vegans and meat eaters about who's right and who's wrong. And it's like that there's so much evidence of what cattle and agriculture and animal agriculture, the effect that it's having on our environment. But that doesn't mean, it doesn't mean you have to cut it out completely. Cutting down helps. Experiment with your cooking. Try new veggies that are protein and iron filled. And then still have your steak if you want it, but just make it a special occasion so it's not every day. Make it, just a more occasional thing. Or don't. That's up to you. But the misconception here is that it's either all or nothing. That is not true. You can cut down a little bit. Any difference matters. Even if you have a meat-free day a week, it counts, and we're all in this together. That being skinny meant being healthy. I thought this for a long time. And it wasn't even necessarily that I thought people that were larger were unhealthy. I was really, really centered in myself about that fact. I didn't really notice other people's body sizes. But to me, I genuinely thought that I had to be skinny to be healthy. But it led to a bunch of problems, and I feel like there's a mix of things to blame, as well as just my own attitudes from when I was younger. But society really does make it seem like to be healthy, you need to be thin. Or even now, it's like you need to be fit with like the perfectly curved ass and like this hourglass figure that doesn't really exist in the natural human body. And it makes no sense, because it's sort of like we went from, don't body shame anyone to let's body shame anyone that doesn't have this perfect hourglass figure. Even the people that you're looking at on Instagram that have that hourglass figure don't have that hourglass figure. No one has that, and if they do, it's probably made out of like concrete stuck in their body with like bits of wire sticking. Over the past few years, what I've learned is healthy, and that's all there is to it. There is absolutely no shame in being larger. And there is also absolutely no shame in being smaller. And there is absolutely no shame in being anything in between. There's shame in shaming someone else for what they look like. Boys cry too. In primary school, I didn't think boys cried. I remember my first partners. They'd tell me that boys don't cry. Like, it's this thing of, it's not manly to cry. I have been watching, if you guys like the show Steven Universe, shout out to Steven Universe. But it has been the manliest thing I have ever seen, has been watching my male friends cry to that show, because it has touched them. It has moved them. There is nothing better than sitting with your friends and having a cry because you have been so moved. Cry. Cry with your boys, cry with your fellas, cry with your girlfriends, cry with your boyfriends, cry with everyone. There's no shame in crying. Never make fun of anyone for crying, because that's a dick thing to do. Just, if you see a crying person and you want to say something mean, just leave them. Better yet, comfort them. Swallow your pride and act against the current of your attitude, saying that's not normal. Because you and your brain, aside from the attitudes that have been drilled into you, know that that's fine. You've been there. We've all been there. We've had a cry. We've been in moments where you feel like you're about to break down. That person is just there. I used to think that rawhide was fine for dogs. Very untrue. Don't give your dogs rawhide. Crust makes your hair curly. No, it doesn't. Shut up. This one is probably this is the one that it gets me. I used to throw cigarette butts out the window. But now I can't believe that I did that. Like, who is that human that could just... And it wasn't that I was thinking about destroying anything. I wasn't thinking. Full stop. That's it. And it was only when I started thinking about it that it became so unacceptable that I started spreading the word. And I remember the word being like, but you used to throw cigarette butts out the window. Why should I listen to you? And the only answer I have for that is because I've learned that we shouldn't do that, and I'm trying to set an example, or at least fix my own mistakes. I am ashamed of that, but I'm proud that I'm ashamed of that because, it means that I'm growing. I don't think you should have a go at people for doing these behaviours, or even people that have now changed them. Don't have a go at anyone that's doing the right thing, and just gently encourage good behaviour in other people. Two groups screaming at each other, your opinions are formed from your group. If one group's yelling at the other and they're both yelling back, that the chance of people swapping groups or listening to each other is so low. Why would you listen to someone yelling at you or telling you that you're a bad person? And it's a lot easier to just justify your behaviour when someone's yelling at you than to fix it. It's like when you're in an argument with your mum, you don't instantly be like, oh my God, you are a wise woman. I am a silly child. You're correct. But later on in your room, when you're thinking about it, you're like, oh shit, yeah, I probably should have just cleaned my room, eh? That's exactly what our attitudes are like in everything else. Don't have a go at people just because they sit on a different side from you. Try to gently educate them if you can. If not, don't waste your time with it. There are people that will listen, people that have these misconceptions that we have always had, that would enjoy you talking to them about it, and they want that, and they don't want you saying you're a bad person because of this. They just want you saying, hey, try this. When you fart, a fairy dies. Thanks, Dad. That smoking itself was cool. Was probably only 15 to 16 when I thought this, but I really did think that smoking made you cool. Alright, the last one I sort of want to focus a little bit on that took me a very, very long time to shake, and I'm not going to lie in this video, I'm not over it. I struggle with this one. That prettiness and worth are directly correlated. I remember I'd noticed that my shoulders were slightly broader than other people's. I'd noticed that I felt tall. I wasn't even that tall, but I felt like a giant. I'd noticed that my body wasn't the same shape. I didn't get boobs at the same time as everyone. And I noticed these things. I noticed my freckles. Now my acne, my skin, I cry so much about that. I look in the mirror and I cry and I cry. And it's like that. We do a lot of that to ourselves. There's no one telling you you're beautiful is going to make you believe it. The only person that can sort of decide what you actually think is beauty is you. And it's taken me a long time to realize that, because I used to have this thing where I'd look in the mirror and I'd cry and my words would be, at least I'm a nice person. And that's really messed up. At least I'm a nice person. That's everything. That's all that matters. Having a kind heart, that's it. The way I look, that doesn't matter. It's what I do. Why would I care about the way I look? I'm tearing up right now. It's definitely what's inside you that matters. I know there's a lot of people out there that feel the same way I do, and I just want to say to you that I 100% promise you that the way you look doesn't matter. A good person is attracted to your kindness and your compassion and your intelligence and what you're passionate about, and there's so much more to you than your face and the skin suit that you wear. We're like this floating ball of energy inside a weird skin suit that we're all so ashamed of, and it's just not fair. It's not nice to live a life feeling ashamed of the way you look. If your idea of prettiness on the outside is so important, let's just skip over that. Let's focus on the parts of you that you do really like, and most of them are going to be inside. that cats come and sit on your lap randomly. You know, the part of you that you like the most might be the fact that you feel like you can talk to dogs. You're not going to find anyone that's achievements come from how they look. There's an industry of models and actors and musicians. Even then, they put in so much work. It's not just that they naturally are like, hey, sick. It takes so much. Talk to most of them, they probably still don't think their outside meat suit is all that great. It'll be what's inside them that they'll talk about. When people stand up at your funeral, they are not going to say, she was the hottest bitch in the club. They're going to say she cared about animals, she cared about her friends, she was a sunshine in human form. They will not comment on the way you look. It's just, they just won't. With that little emotional ending, now is a time that we need to be sharing and communicating and being honest with each other as compassionately as possible. There's so much bad going on and so much good at the same time, and I feel like a lot of the good is arguing amongst itself, and we just can't afford to have that happen right now. Be open to change, be open to learning, be open to educating. Just don't spread hate. If there's someone who will not receive it, you do not have to spend your time there. There is someone else who will be willing to receive what you have to say. And maybe they have something to say that will change you too. Find people that you fit in with, that believe the same things as you. Find people that your soul feels happy around and learn from them and teach them and stay in these groups and stay kind to each other, because I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I am terrified for it, but I'm also so proud of all of us. I've never been a part of something so beautiful where the world has come together for anything before, ever. It's happened before my life, but I read that in a book at school. It doesn't seem real. I read Harry Potter in a book at school. That doesn't seem real either. And I lived it, and it's changed my life a bit. And now I see even more strongly why kindness and compassion is the only thing that can help us here, and why we really do need to stick together and not be quiet about things, but not force that noise into places where it's just not going to benefit. Because there are places that it'll benefit and places that we won't do as much harm with these arguments and these debates as we maybe are. But anyway, I encourage you guys to comment all the random shit that you believed below. Correct me on anything that I might have got wrong, because that's also very possible. This is not a place to shame each other for our past stupidity, and not a place to shame people who may still believe those things now. It's more opening up the conversation of, I am not ashamed of those mistakes that I've made. I am proud that I have learnt from them. And let's open up this conversation. Make your own video of all the dumb stuff you thought was real as a kid, or all the things that you wish you hadn't have done because you realise now that they were cruel or offensive or bad for the environment or whatever it may be.